Guys, welcome back to Vintage Super League. Eric Froelich. I'm joined by Rodrigo Tagores. Rodrigo, how's it going?
I got destroyed.
Yes, that is a factual statement.
Yeah, it's fine. Also, game one, he played Shattering Spree, which is pretty strange, but
Yeah, we were pretty surprised when that was his first draw step. We're like, oh, look, Rodrigo's on shops and bowling to 5, but he's got a pretty nice pressure draw. And then Paul's first draw step was Shattering Spree. Like, okay, then. Apparently he was not unprepared for this.
And then on game two, I think I had to mull again, and then I got pretty hard flooded. I drew like 8 lands and 4 spells.
Yeah, I mean, once you mulligan that first time, your hand was fine. Like, if you had a sphere in that first game, despite mulling to 5, you probably would have won, assuming you had any action. His hand just did not really, like, he had a probe and ancestral, but he had a 2-lander and didn't find lands off any of those things. So if you just had, like, turn 1 sphere, you would have had plenty of time to be able to actually win that game. But, as is, there's kind of just nothing you could do. You kind of had to go all in on the token, and he's got Shattering Sprees, and could just make a million Young Pyromancer tokens. And he just kept finding lands after that. He actually got up to like 5 mana sources against the Tangle Wire, and found the Forcible for the second one. So that game ended up being really close, especially for your multi-5 without a sphere effect. And then game 2 was not very close. Although you did get him to a low life total. Getting to see Paul's hand and the fact that he still had Force of Will. Like the turn he cast Shattering Spree, could have played Young Pyromancer, started making tokens. It was just like kind of just a runaway. Once you didn't find spells in the first few turns, it was just, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so when he asked me on the chat what was the converted mana cost of Ingot Chewer for Chalice, and I was like, okay, my hand is not really great, and he's gonna get rid of the Chalice, which is really great against the blue-red Delver.
Yeah.
But then I knew that I had to draw like running Ballistas, and he don't have Force of Will.
Well, if you found one Ballista that didn't have Force of Will, you were going to win.
Yeah.
You had so much mana, but yeah. You did not. Yeah, or just a threat in those first couple turns. Like, we don't get to see what happened with your scry. Like, if you kept something on top with your hand, because you had 7 mana on turn 2, you could just play, like, Lodestone Golem, something good. Like, you can win that way, but once you didn't get, draw anything off your first draw step and didn't really find anything, your first action was Mistress Factory, which actually did a pretty good job of racing. You got him down within 1 swing, but not really much you can do.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about your other matchups?
So I think against Oliver it's pretty fine, and not against you. You're even playing Energy Flux in the sideboard.
Yeah, I figured. Like, you played shops in the what's it called, Power 9, and Paul plays a lot of decks that play a lot of artifacts. And also, let's say Oliver decides not to play Mentor, good chance he's going to play like an artifact combo deck. So I kind of just came with all of it. Like, I have, after sideboard, like 3 Nature's Claim, 3 Ancient Grudge, 2 Energy Flux, 2 DAC. I got a lot of things to potentially battle with shops, but probably just have one of those draws where I don't get to cast a spell, in which case shops wins.
Yeah, but
I've definitely done it the other way. I've definitely been on the shop side against, like, the Oath deck with all the sideboard cards, and you just, turn 1 sphere, turn 2 sphere, turn 3 sphere, turn 4 sphere, you're just like, okay, there it is.
I have won many games against Oath just because they never get to play a spell.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing when you're playing a deck with all the spheres and all the wastelands. Sometimes you just shut them out.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this matchup here between Skull Clamp Pyromancer and Oliver 2? Let's actually take a look at Paul's deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna look now.
He's playing the archetype that everyone, of course, at home.
Also, I think Mentor is better than Blue-Red Delve.
You think that part of the reason why he did this is because someone like me might be crazy enough to just play main deck Dreadenites and just kind of go all in for sideboard hate against Mentor?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Paul is kind of known for
really high on hate. Also,
You still there? All right. I think we lost Rodrigo, but
So
looking through Paul's side, I think we gained Rodrigo. Yeah, Paul's got definitely some sideboard options. 4 Ingot Chewers, the second copy of Shattering Spree, a Null Rod. He can board in a Wasteland. Of course, he's going to be looking to board out cards like Mental Misstep and maybe some of his expensive spells, but we will see. Paul Rietzl against Oliver 2. Rietzl Skull Clamp versus 2 Mentor. One of those famous matchups that, everyone's always talking about. Let's check it out now. Welcome back to Vintage Super League. Oliver 2, Paul Rietzl. Rietzl Skull Clamp has a bunch of Delvers in it. Oliver, well, he's got answers to Delvers. What do you think about these hands?
From this matchup is usually Mentor plays 4 Mental Misstep, which Oliver does, and these cards are pretty good against Delver.
Really good, yeah.
And so here, if Oliver would have another Mental Misstep, he will get ahead pretty easily.
It means that getting ahead, you're trading 1 for 1.
Yeah, but the problem is that Mentor, the longer the game goes, the better it is, for my point of view. He plays like Jace and more cards that if you get to make more land drops, you can play better spells.
Yeah, I mean, the decks have a lot of similarities. Well, yeah, as you said, like the Delvers just become kind of real cards in Oliver's deck. He just plays the Mentors and the Planeswalkers for kill conditions, and Young Pyromancer is just kind of a weaker version of Monastery Mentor, assuming you're in that late game. Obviously, if you cast the Young Pyromancer off a Mox on turn 1, it's pretty good.
It's weird why Paul played blue-red instead of Grixis, because the Cabal Therapy is really strong.
Yeah, that's a deck I strongly consider playing.
And I kind of like also I have tested Grixis Pyromancer, and sometimes you have Pyromancer and a Therapy, and it's game over. So Oliver chose to Pyroblast against a cantrip. So he's being pretty aggressive with his Pyroblast, usually. You like that?
I think it's fine. I mean, it's kind of tough to say. Like, getting cards in your graveyard is already decent when you have a Delve spell in your hand. Leaving up a mana at all times is not necessarily an easy thing to do, and Preordain is a really good card. Like, countering a Preordain versus saving it for something like Gush, like, yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Paul's not playing a ton of Planeswalkers, which is a place where Pyroblast can be a lot better. So it's not like he has like a bunch of Jace Friends Prodigies, Jace the Mind Sculptors, and Dak Fadens, where you can tap out and still use Pyroblast to kill it. You can counter those later in the game. I think it's close. It's hard to say. Like, I don't think there's a right answer to that. Let's put it that way. Although Paul's got a decision now whether he wants to use his misstep to actually save this Delver. It's his only threat, and he has no other action in hand. So, well. Oliver not respond to the Strip Mine with Gush? Interesting. Well, it does mean he's going to get to cast Dig this turn, although Paul does have the Force. What do you think about not responding with Gush?
Also, I don't like the responding with Gush, because you have a lot of lands, and you go back on playing Dig Through Time 1 turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you get 1 card, but I think the tempo is more important right now that he has the Living Delver there.
Yeah. What if he did not have Dig Through Time in hand?
There, I would have Gush, I think.
I agree. I agree with everything you said. So Delver is not flipping again. Or, no, I guess it would have.
Oh, he's casting Din through time.
Right. When he did it right now, I was trying to figure out whether, something got revealed. Like, let's say Flusterstorm got revealed from Delver. You cast Dig now because you're going to draw Flusterstorm or Pyroblast, whatever it might be. But obviously Delver didn't flip, so nothing got revealed.
Oliver's playing Pyroblast, so he chose to not to pay one more mana and not Pyroblast. So maybe he already.
He's also playing. He's playing Snapcaster Mages too, and there's something he wants to Pyroblast on the battlefield. So kind of either way.
So now
he really wants to flip the Delver here though. All just bricked again. At least Scalding Tarn will give him a bit of a scry with Delver.
Yeah, but
big scry.
Okay, I think it's over.
Oliver is going to make a 15/15 mentor this turn.
He could have done a bigger mentor last round. Against you, he had lethal in hand.
Yeah, that's what the chat said, and Oliver tweeted, and everyone else was saying. Don't worry, I made fun of him in the commentary, despite not having been able to see it yet.
There were some draws. One question in your match: why you didn't activate the Oath?
Why I didn't activate Oath?
Yeah,
I wasn't sure that my hope was to find Time Walk and something so that I can maybe counter back, and I felt like if my Salvagers got exiled and Gristlebrand's in my hand, that there's a good chance I just couldn't win.
But it's not more reasonable to activate than Oliver had a Fossil Will only. So if you draw for your turn Fossil Will, then you counter his Fossil Will, then you cruise into Lotus, Brainstorm, Time Walk, or something like that.
I didn't think that, even if I do that, I can't win. What can I, he's got a million creatures. What I was hoping to do, I have balance in my deck, so I was hoping to find, Time Walk counter or, balance counter or something that could fight with Force of Will, and I wasn't going to have the mana to cast all those things and Treasure Cruise, and I thought that I actually just, let's say I milled enough cards to even make Treasure Cruise happen, but let's say that, it was a lot of cards or a medium amount of cards, it's so hard for me to win with Gristlebrand in my hand and Salvager's now exiled, especially against that board. I need to be able to kill all the creatures, and Salvager's exiled, I can't win. It's possible that I could have just found, let's say he doesn't have Force of Will, that I could just find off because I get a library draw too, Lotus Salvagers. I could draw cards that could actually win the game, and I thought that, I considered it long, and I could be wrong, but that was my thinking that, I actually could not win the game if I did that.
Also, I think the chances are higher on just try to hit good cards with Treasure Cruise instead of yeah, it's close there. Well,
my only point being, what cards do I want to hit off Treasure Cruise where I can now win this game? Or Evolve, if I mill, if Salvagers isn't in the top, let's say 30 cards, drawing 8 cards is not going to do anything. I'm going to get decked before I can, my deck can't win. I need to actually set something up without the Salvagers at that point. So, I need to mill a certain number of cards, and I still need to hit perfects to the point that at least if, I draw 2 cards, let's say I find Time Walk, or if I find a certain combination of cards, or, I find Black Lotus so that I can just cast a Treasure Cruise that way. There were other different things I could find off my 2 cards that I wanted Salvagers to be in my deck, and I thought that Salvagers being in my deck was the only way I could actually win.
Also, you still had Pyroclasm in your deck after for game 3.
I had 1. Yeah. No, I had 2 Wraths in my deck. I had a balance also.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to find, but also the odds of him having a counter are high.
Yeah, so he will have.
So I need to find multiple things. I don't know. I couldn't figure out the best way to possibly set that up. I didn't necessarily want to use the 1 mana for Treasure Cruise either, because I was actually going to be kind of pinned on mana. And it's very possible that I should have Oath. I definitely strongly considered it.
And so if you would have had the Gristlebrand in your deck and the Salvagers in your hands, then I think you would have Oath for sure.
Yeah.
and and then another question: why you were playing those Pyroclasm, white bordered?
When it's like a real cheesy hate card that is only for like potentially one person. I like the white border.
I don't mean if the
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Like in the last Super League, I always played my Arcane Labs white bordered.
Okay. So
just because it's already going to be so tilting when you're playing in Storm and you play Arcane Lab that the whiteboarded one is just like perfect.
Okay, we have a double Library of Alexandria draw, which is better on the draw than on the play.
Yeah, but Paul's playing the real library, so he's got the advantage. Except he's on play.
I took time to change all the cards to the old artwork in all my decks for the Super League.
Like, yeah, no, you got to do that.
If you upload the deck from a text document, then it loads always or most of the time the most new cards. So I was changing everything. So I think it's more vintage.
I agree. Yeah. Like, what do you like the new masterpieces, right?
Yeah, I think they are pretty sweet.
Yeah, like I love the way the old cards look and everything about them so much. It's tough for me to see. Change is just tough. I'm too old for this.
So I like the old cards, but I think that making a lot of hate of new cards is like not a way to go. Like you can like both. So I like, for example, old border foil cards, but also, for example, in my modern decks, I play everything with new frame, just because having everything with the same frame for the deck, while I could, for example, play the Slate of Hands on 7th edition instead of or Portal, but I like having everything the same. So Oliver has triple detection probe that could be anything, but the best of it is it will be dig through time pretty soon.
Yeah, he's gonna load up his graveyard real quick.
While Paul has just preordains and scalding cards. Those spells are really strong in Magic.
Did you get to play much Vintage when they were not restricted?
Yeah. I played them, and I won a few tournaments with this weird show and tell omniscience dig through time deck. Luis played. The deck I just crush it every time. It was like the modern omniscience, like the best dig through time deck. Just 2-3 dig through time every game.
Yeah.
With Posejo. So, and I think the cards are really good designed for standard, the Del spells. So I'm pretty sure you played more standard than me, but I think in standard they were really cool. I saw friends playing the Esper Dragon with dig through time, and they were balanced. But when you start playing Preordain and Detection Probe and Ponder, they get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cast them necessarily in the early game in Standard, but with Jeskai Ascendancy, they're really good. Unfortunately, Jeskai Ascendancy itself wasn't completely insane, but the things that you could do when you got going were obviously just ridiculous.
Yeah, so the card is really broken in comparison to all the other Ascendancies. The Jeskai is...
Yeah, definitely compared to the other Ascendancies.
So Paul has now a Junk Pyromancer. He's gonna deploy, and
think about it. Oliver has a Stony Silence in his hand, which is it turns off Skull Clamp. Paul is a deck that has no rod in his sideboard.
Oof. just Skull Clamp. He has He has boarded in Stony Silence for 2 Skull Clamps.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. It was pretty surprising.
So maybe just playing a card like Disenchant would be better.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would think. Although you could just be concerned that he builds up an elemental army and draws a bunch of cards, but that doesn't really seem like. Do you think Skull Clamp is even a good card in this deck? Do you think there are a lot of games that come down to where you have a bunch of elementals and just need to draw a bunch of cards, and you have that mana laying around? Like, that seems like a lot of asks all at once.
Yeah, so I have played in Mentor 1 Skull Clamp, and usually it was a win more card when you were going already. So if your token machine is making tokens, you usually are winning. And being it a mental misstep target on an important card, I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like the type of card that really. The whole thing just doesn't seem to mesh all that well, I guess. And Skull Clamp's a good Magic card, but like the thing, like it's a combo. You need to have the Young Fireman, you need to have tokens, and then it might help you make more, but. So do just card drawing spells that would have helped you earlier.
Also, maybe the best of the Skull Clamp Impulse deck is to eat that Delver.
Yeah.
Or a Snapcaster.
Is Paul playing Snapcaster? I didn't check. Oh, it's in his hand, yeah. Yeah, he's probably playing it. Seems like this token is gonna run a lot of damage. So Oliver can Snapcaster whenever he wants, but there is not a good card to get from it. Yeah.
I don't know who's winning right now because.
Yeah, there's not really much to say because someone's got to force the action at some point, and then, come what may. Like, both their hands are solid-ish. I mean, they obviously each have a couple lands, but there's action spells, there's good counters, cheap counters in Oliver's hand. But neither of them really want to play spells. They're both on library. So they're both just kind of sitting here.
Is Paul playing Lightning Bolt? Oh, Paul only plays 1 Lightning Bolt.
If Oliver missteps this preordained, Paul is temporarily off of library, although has lots of ways to get back there.
Yeah, I kind of like Gush in the library decks. Also, for example, on this Silent Mentor that Rich played, the first deck list he played had 1 Wasteland, 1 Streamline, 2 Wasteland, and no library. And I think library is so strong in Gush decks because you can go on the library so fast.
Yeah. I mean, Oliver had not played a library in his decks previously. Like, he was playing Blue-White Mentor with no library. And, he said, I don't really know whether it's good or bad. I'm fairly sure that's the case, at least. I could be wrong, I guess.
I think it's a card that you win so many games just by having it on your hand.
Well, right now, Oliver, with 7 cards in his hand and 3 counters, has no answer to Young Pyromancer.
But he can dig through time there, or...
Yes. And Paul has no actual answer to that, although could Gush if he really wanted to. He's not going to dig.
That's weird.
Don't know what his thinking is here. Also choosing to take damage off the first mental misstep with 4 mana available and only 10 life. Getting close to that danger zone. There's 4 power in play right now. Not really an amount of damage you can just ignore.
So you can now dig and so Oliver will be thinking that Paul has a Flusterstorm here. Does he play Flusterstorm? No. Okay, no Flusterstorm's main deck. Okay, 2 in the sideboard. So okay, he's gonna dig now, and now he's forcing that if Paul has a Fossil Will for the dig through time, he could fluster both.
Yeah, he can fluster everything, so there's nothing that Paul can really even have. Like, even if Paul has a Flusterstorm, he can fluster the Flusterstorm and the Gush.
Yeah, but now is Paul the one that has to move first? So, because Oliver is casting dig through time, Paul has to try to counter dig through time, so dig through time is going to resolve. And then Oliver, balance and time walk.
Yeah, this is definitely starting to go Oliver's way. Gush finds Bolt Ponder.
Oh, he's gonna cast the Delver? Why? Why do you cast the Delver there?
Yeah, I don't agree with this decision.
Okay,
Maybe he didn't look at the list.
Yeah, and also maybe he's worried about a mentor. But this balance is gonna be really great.
Yes, that is an accurate statement.
I would have liked there to ponder or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
You can ponder, find a Fossil Will, have Delver for the Fossil Will. So
Oliver can't quite library yet. He's got to get down to 7 cards.
Yeah, he goes. So he can time walk first.
Yeah, I think he wants to time walk first to make sure this Flusterstorm is fully enabled. Although Paul does only have 1 mana. Can't really think of anything relevant, but
he's gonna draw in response.
Yeah, I think this is just a mistake.
Here, Paul should lightning bolt him to get 1 card from the 1 more card from the balance.
I don't think he wants to do that because he has a library of his own. Like right now, he's kind of crushed. He's got 3 lands in hand. So getting rid of a card in Oliver's hand is just not exciting.
Yeah, that's true. I
just not leading on time walk, I think, was just a mistake. I don't know if Oliver necessarily saw it.
And now
you will get land a time walk to set up and Gush to turn the library back on next turn. Then he can snap time walk if he wants.
I like that play with library in play a lot.
It's not a bad one.
Yeah, seems like Mentor is a good deck.
Are you sure?
I think it's the best deck in Vintage. The problem is that the Mentor mirrors are quite boring for me. They're not really fun. Because usually it comes down to who gets the Mentor and some spicy cards as backup.
Yeah, we've seen quite a bit of that on Vintage Super League. Well, Oliver just kind of twiddling his thumbs here. He's got the clock in play now. He's got a good removal spell. He's got entire hand of counters. Can cast all of them.
So,
While he uses his library, he's going to need to find a lot. Well, he's got reasonable options.
yeah, but not really good against triple force of will and mental misstep and Flusterstorm.
Right. Now, I mean, making Oliver use any of those cards does get him a force of will. Oliver actually doesn't have a single card in his hand that draws a spell, or draws a card. So, like, if he forces him to use a force of will, like that library is not going to be used for a while unless he finds Gush, in which case it's just on immediately. Or potentially Ancestral.
It's always really weird how aggressive Oliver is with his counters. I think it's fine, but you can make the land drop the next turn, so you are not gonna discard of library.
Well, I assume he shuffled off Ponder, because Black Lotus is not a great draw here. Alright. Snapcaster's pretty good. Staticaster actually is an answer for opposing Snapcaster.
And kills all the mentor tokens sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that can happen.
Also, it always kills at least one token.
There you go. Might be the token that just got created. But
so it's not a great card. I was thinking of a deck like to play today. It was like 5-color humans. And one of the lists I saw online, it had 3 Staticaster in the sideboard.
Okay.
Like, just shoot everyone there.
I mean, if it wasn't a creature, I could have played it in my deck. I've got Pyroclasms and Slice and Dice.
Nice and nice. I think I haven't seen anyone playing the card in real life until today. Also in the Winter Super League, it has been played sometimes, but I have never seen it on a paper event.
Yeah, paper's got to catch up to us.
But the card was already played like 2 seasons ago.
Oh, I've definitely played it multiple times. Other people have played it too. It was definitely a card that was played on Magic Online. It's not like, I don't think someone in VSL just came up with it. It was something that, you know, the Delver Pyromancer decks, when it was the best deck in Vintage, people's answers were Slice and Dice.
Yeah,
it was a pretty good one. Like, people didn't even want to play, like, do 1 damage to everything, something like Electricity, because it got hit by Mental Misstep. And then you just have this card that gets around everything.
Also, not playing the cards because of Mental Misstep, I think it's a problem of Mental Misstep. I don't like the card really much. I think it's not a really fun card, the Mental Misstep on the format.
So Paul is actually not out of this game at all. This Treasure Cruise, if Oliver doesn't come after it, he gets to resolve Treasure Cruise. And if he does, he is temporarily off library. Well, Paul actually has a lot of things that are actually, you know, relevant spells. Like, he can snap back this Treasure Cruise. He can play the Staticaster to kill Snapcaster. He can play Delver. He's got a bunch of threats there. He's got a Bolt on top of his library to the point where Bolt Snap is, you know, not too far away from just stealing this game. Like, there are some interesting options here.
Yeah. So if he could protect this second Bolt, it can be game over. The one of Lightning Bolt from the side, from the main deck. The best thing is the sudden shock. When your opponent thinks he's winning, like on stabilize it on 2 life for counter spells, and then you just sudden shock them.
Yeah, but you got to wait till the last possible moment. You just sit there and hold it.
So, for example, with the Leo Ball deck, there are many games where you are just destroying your opponent, but you have like 1 life, 2 life, and you have 7 counters in hand. And then if your opponent plays sudden shock, it will be really sad. The bad thing is that sudden shock is really bad against the 4-color Leo Ball deck.
Well, Paul went for the Snapcaster. Oliver knows he's going to have to force whatever spell he gets anyway, so he might as well force the Snapcaster. There's a Delver. So both players way off of library now. Paul's got a decision of whether he wants to trade here. I assume he won't with Staticaster in hand, although Oliver's got the answers to that in every way possible now. He can hard cast Force. He's got Pyroblast. Oh. Paul hoping that this is a lethal turn. Flip Delver, revealing Lightning Bolt. Opponent at 6. Not quite. Paul really wants to cast the Staticaster on his turn before. Like Oliver left himself in a position where he would have to crack the Lotus to cast Pyroblast. He did not play the other red source and use Sudden Shock. So I think this ended up being a misstep by Paul, knowing about these Pyroblasts in the deck.
Yeah, so Paul, not knowing what Oliver has in hand now, it's a downside, because if he would have known, he would have for sure done it like so.
Right, but it's not like Flusterstorm can't target as its Staticaster, and the counters it actually can. You're looking at like hard cast Force of Will, which, yeah, that's better to cast on your opponent's turn, but he's sacking, like, if he does it on your turn, he's got to sack the Lotus, and if he does it on his turn, he doesn't. So there's actually multiple reasons to not wait.
Yeah, so it's better for sure. I think in general, also, not Paul, but people undervalue casting instant spells on his turn.
He's actually got a decision here. He can not cast the Mentor first and gush and get a library activation, which seems pretty good here with your opponent at 5 life. Just get that extra card. But
so Oliver is gonna not cast the Lightning Bolt on the Mentor. Yeah, okay, it's still lethal anyway.
yeah, this one's all over.
So he's gonna.
He'll probably swords this in response, get the Monk and get the 3 life.
Still in hand, even if this Lightning Bolt
It's gonna force
resolves.
it. That makes sense too.
But
he doesn't know what he's gonna do.
so you can flow it and create a token. But you can also just do nothing and have Pyroblast and Force of Will and a 2-turn clock, which I think it's fine. Also, I don't care about this Mentor dying if my opponent is at 5 life.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he's got this game pretty well in hand. This does take him off having 2 counters. Of course, Paul doesn't have any spells in his hand. Doesn't matter, but...
So, yeah, so Pyroblast is lethal. And
Oliver does not like lethal, though, so we don't know what's going to happen here. No, he's going to do it. All right, so Oliver 2. 2-0.
Yeah.
That Mentor deck, huh? I think we all came in here feeling pretty good about our Mentor matchups. And, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, having a really strong deck is pretty good. So, yeah.
That's hard to argue.
So I think Mentor is over all other blue decks in Vintage.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really see a counter argument to that. Like, the deck is pretty oppressive. I assume that they're going to be looking to make some changes to the restricted list at some point pretty soon. It is kind of tough always with Vintage just because Paper Magic is always going to be a little bit slower to catch up. It's hard for people to don't necessarily make the changes that they might make to optimize their deck when the cards are so expensive. You're talking about a format like Vintage. And, if you're a Shops player, you're a Shops player. You don't really see Shops players in real life big Vintage events play the blue decks very often. It's just, this is what I play. And so, when Lodestone Golem gets restricted, people are like, okay, that's the end of my Magic career. Didn't actually, nuke Shops. Shops still a great deck, and, it ended up being a pretty great restriction, but this is just one of those things that makes any changes a little bit tougher.
I think Shops nowadays is really cool to play because right before it was just the Lodestone deck and Chalice deck, but now with the Ravager and all the other kind of Shops, you have a lot of fun decisions, not just slam the Lodestone on turn 1. And I think that's pretty cool for the deck.
Yeah,
and it's just strong.
I agree completely. All right, so coming up next, me and you.
Yeah.
See who gets on the board. All right.
I'm a bit afraid, but.
Well, me too. I mean, there's a lot of random elements to this game, so we'll see what happens. I'm sure you'll get this one pretty easily, and I'll get to tilt off, which is pretty fun too. So stay tuned. Got another match coming up for you shortly.
Yeah, sure.